Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Gothic Bold, and this is my co-host and co-non-human, Times New Roman.
Hello, Gothic Bold. What kind of monster are you?
I am a good monster. I'm a froggy monster.
Aren't they all? Aren't they all?
Well, I don't know. Are they? No, yes, they are.
I'm sure we'll get into it in a lot of detail.
Yeah, that's right, because this week on the show, we are doing another one of our patron-produced episodes. For those of you that do not know, folks who pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level on our Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get one of their rewards for pledging, and thank yous for pledging at that level, is to get to select a topic for us to do on the show on. This week, Patron ENamorD, one of our long-time patrons, has selected the 2016 video game Undertale. And I think we're going to have a lot to say about this. This is the first time we've done a video game for these patron-produced episodes, but it is not the first time we've talked about games on this show. But it's not something we do very often.
Yeah, I admit I had some trepidation in, a game is quite a time commitment, but this was such a complex and interesting on so many different levels experience that I am really glad that I went deep into it. Basically, yeah. I agree, and I think we're gonna have a whole lot to say. It is I really appreciate ENamorD picking this for us because I've been on a quest to find a video game that manages to do storytelling in a unique but good manner. I feel like a lot of video games, their storytelling is either just not very good, or if it is good, it's it feels more movie-ish than it does video game-ish. And I think this game did not do that. Yeah, I mean, should we just get into the detailed discussion now?
Yeah, let's So we're going to talk all about Undertale. Then I want to talk about Shazam very briefly after the end of that, and I think we'll call it a show. But so I guess we should say spoilers for Undertale. I don't know. I want to talk about spoilers for sure because I think it's important to understanding the story. But I also there might be some listeners who've never played this game, and I kind of want them to experience it. So I don't want to tell you go away if you haven't played the game yet. But
yeah, I mean, if you think there's a chance you're going to play the game, maybe let yourself play it unspoiled if you can. The interesting thing about it is there's almost nothing you can say about it that isn't a bit spoilery because even the explanation that I was about to give for why all the information about it is spoilery was going to be spoilery. That's kind of how bad it is. So if you're interested in a very novel gaming experience, go check it out and then come back
and then head on back.
If you've played it, just hang out, and if you don't think you're going to play it, but maybe we can pitch you to it, hang around.
Yeah, I think that's a good breakdown.
Yeah, and I guess what I was going to say to move into it is it's such a meta experience. It
really is.
There's nothing. It's weird to say, but it's honestly not like any game that I've played in the degree that it's challenging your understanding of how games work and making you reflect on how games work in general. That's one of the most interesting things about it to me on the meta level is the combat is about how combat is done in games. The dialogue is challenging your assumptions about how dialogue and character dynamics operates in games.
Yeah.
A lot of it's a puzzle game in a certain sense, but some of the puzzles are just jokes that are I'm remembering a couple specifically where one of them it tells you the rules that are extremely detailed and complicated, and then the puzzle just breaks and you don't have to do it. And then later there's another version of that puzzle and you still it just doesn't actually matter if you defeat it. It's
but
hilarious.
It is the actual puzzle though, which is great. I love that. And I mean, I think that's a good place to start is the meta nature of it all, because I do think you're right that this game is challenging your understanding of RPGs at first, right? Because this game, how much about this game did you know before you walked into it? Because I knew nothing, basically.
I think somewhere between nothing and the fact that it was a low budget indie game with what's the word?
the type of art, the type of sprite art that it has.
Yeah,
that's really it though.
Yeah, I think that's about all I knew too. I knew it was good because it seemed to be the general consensus that everyone liked it, but that's it. And it drops you into this game, and it is it sets itself up to be very traditionally RPG-y. And it's doing that almost to manipulate you because I've played so many RPGs throughout my life. This game drops you into it, and then you have this flower that says, "Oh, your LV," which we know as level. The flower says that stands for love. Yeah. And EXP is experience, and it's only at the end of the game that you're told love is level of violence and EXP is execution points when you're judged for how many things you've killed throughout the game. But it's so funny because I walked right up. I got in the first battle with the first frog that you fight, and I just killed that sucker because that's what you do in a game. It says there's a fight command on a menu. There's an enemy that you've gone into a separate screen on, and you're told to get experience, so you just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tangent off of. I guess this isn't a tangent. This is exactly what we're talking about. Like, basically, the combat isn't combat. Okay, so you can play the combat as combat, and then you win the game, and everyone in the game treats you as if you're like a horrible monster and hates you. And like the delightful, adorable, chubby skeleton guy, like tells you that you should go to hell and like things like this.
Yeah.
Or you basically turn the combat into solving puzzles, and then every instance of combat is now a puzzle. And not just a puzzle where it's like, are you clever enough to figure out the puzzle? But they're this very interesting kind of puzzle where like, solving the puzzles actually changes how you think gradually, because like it's happening consistently for so long that eventually you're thinking like, how do I help solve this creature's problem?
Exactly. That's the craziest thing about it is you're thrown into combat and it's a big scary monster, and even with the sprite art, some of them look like rather intimidating.
Yeah.
And your first instinct is okay, how do I get out of this? And it really becomes what's going on with you, sir, and how might I help with that? And it's a slow transition, like, and I'm curious, like, if anyone the first time they played this game they didn't kill anyone, because I kind of doubt it. Like, I kind of think the game wants to manipulate you into that, where at least the first couple of encounters you're going to do it before the game really starts to pound into you that like, hey, there's another way to do this. There you don't have to do it that way.
Definitely. Unless you heard about what the game is, and you know, like even the fact that the menus require like you have to figure out the menus, right? So like the first time you're in combat, you're like, oh shit, I got to figure out these menus. Yeah. Fight, that's obvious. Act, I don't know what that means. Like your impulse is always going to be just attack, right?
Right. Yeah, because that's what you do in RPGs. And in RPGs, the combat portion and the overworld portion are two separate games, and never the twain mix, right? There's that old joke about how characters can die in a cutscene, but not in actual battle because you can just revive them. And those two sides of games don't mix very often, and that's not true in this game. Like that is absolutely not true. And one of the other things I love about it is we're trained. Like I don't know if I'm trained, but combat text is so unimportant to anything because it's just like blah, blah, damage, and then this says random threatening phrase that doesn't matter. It took me a good hour into this game before I really started like reading the combat text, because you're so used to just like Xing through it, right? And that's one of the ways that I think this game brilliantly like re-teaches you existence in video games.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of the combat text is actually just like the important story dialogue at certain points.
Well, and it's also how you solve the puzzles. Like the monsters are telling you what their problem is if you're listening.
Yeah.
Only if you're listening. And that's why I was stuck for a while, and I would just be like randomly going to act and going through the different actions like in a trial and error fashion until it's like, no, actually, if you listen to what they're saying and how they react to the different things you do, they're giving you clues. Like, and also if you bring outside knowledge into it, where like if you're fighting against a dog, maybe just pet the dog.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's hilariously fun. Like there's certain cases where it's like the dog is not calm enough for you to pet it yet, and then you have to like calm the dog down before you can pet the dog, and it's like it literally is a combination of like teaching you to be more empathetic toward these fictional things, and also puzzle solving. And it's so I think it was funny because you said something when I started playing. You were like, I love Papyrus so much. She's so great. And I started playing it. And at first I was like, I don't like Papyrus. Like I don't care about Papyrus. And I can't imagine caring about Papyrus. I can't really imagine caring about any of these characters because they're like sprites and they're talking in pure text and like this, which is kind of stupid because I can care about characters in a book, obviously.
Yeah.
So of course I can care about sprites who talk only in text. But like the fact is, eventually I did come to think these characters were awesome and care about them in this silly game because the characters are actually really consistent and they all have complicated relationships, and I dare say the characters react to what you do more than like most even like modern games where you have like a reputation stat or whatever. I think part of it is that the game kind of doesn't give you any kind of forgiveness. Like that was so I called my my first playthrough the rain playthrough because I killed a bunch of creatures at the beginning and then realized that you weren't supposed to, and then I was like, well, then I'm going to be the way I role play myself is that I'm going to regret that I did that for the rest of the game and never do it anymore and try to make up for it. But the thing is, the game doesn't really let you make up for it. Like the characters who are going to be mad at you for killing things are still mad at you. Yes, it's true that if you play full quote unquote genocide and kill everything, then you get like a spectacularly bad ending where you end up having to kill like all of the nice people. But like there's very permanent consequences to your choices in combat if you decide to kill things, and then also like it's actually important what characters you talk to and interact with and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing I was thinking about is because I mean the story of this game is fine, like the overall story, like it's not super like unique, right? It's this basic story of there's monsters and there's humans and they had a big war and they got separated, and you kind of learn throughout the course of the story that the monsters weren't actually the bad ones, that it's actually the humans that did bad stuff, which is a fairly standard tale, I think. And at the end, like there's an evil flower that's trying to prove a point to you and all that stuff. Yeah. But the thing that I think really endears you to the game beyond that story, and I don't think it's a bad story, I just think it's rather simple. The impressiveness in the story is how it's told, not the story itself. But I think the thing that endears you to the game is these characters, and you really do grow to feel for these characters. And that's one of the things, while I was playing it, I was really trying to figure out why. Why do I care about, like, we meet Toriel at the very beginning of the game, and she's nice, but she's a sprite, and then you have to break her heart. You have to. Like, the game makes you break her heart and leave her, and all she wants is for you to stay. And you felt that. You really felt it. And then I meet Sans and Papyrus, and yeah, Sans is this funny guy, and Papyrus is this kind of goofy idiot. But by the end of that interaction, I'm going on a date with Papyrus, and like, I'm like he's breaking it to me that he doesn't actually feel this way about me, and I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. And then like a little bit later, you meet Undyne, and then you meet Undyne's crush and Alphys, and you actually care about their relationship, and you get to see them get together if you were playing on the peaceful mode. But why? Like, why? And I really think the thing is, it's because you feel the weight of those choices. Because those choices matter, and you feel like they matter, the characters suddenly come to life. And it's different than I think a lot of other video games do it, because I think you're absolutely right. The games gamify it a little bit, where they have relationship stats. Like, what is your relationship bar with this character for this character? There's no such system in this game. It's just that you make a choice, and that choice is then made, and the character will react to that. You can fight Papyrus the first time.
Yeah.
You can tell Papyrus that you didn't like his food over Sans's or whatever. You can choose to do that, and it matters to the game, and it feels like it matters to the game, and that is doing that clever, and then mixing in the comedy, which is I think the guy who made this game has a very specific sense of humor that I just happen to love. But mixing those things together creates character, like actual real characters, and that's how the game trains you to be more empathetic, because how could you kill these people? How could you do it?
Yeah, I find that the manipulation of tone with humor and seriousness does a lot for me in terms of making me feel unexpected things. Like, you know, you'll be interacting with Papyrus, and he's just so silly, and it's just like purely funny. Like, there's nothing serious about it. And then like you know, a bit later, you're like cornered by Undyne, and she's like railing at you and like furious at you for murdering people. So that's what happened, because again, I killed some characters, and then and then started sparing them. And what was kind of amazing to me in that moment was I wanted to like verbally defend myself to Undyne, the sprite character, because I was like, I didn't understand at the time what I was doing. Okay, like I didn't know they were like, I didn't know people care. I thought they were monsters in an RPG. Okay, I didn't understand.
Right, exactly.
Which, of course, they are monsters in an RPG because it's an RPG. But the point is that the character was judging me for it, and I felt very judged, and like successfully, like I had done something wrong and was being called out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I never expected to feel this in a in a game, you know?
Yeah, and it's like the first interaction you have with most of the characters is one of them being kind to you. So it's like, for you to then go forward into your mindless slaughter. Like, I don't know how I could play this game on the genocide mode. I don't think I would be able to physically do it. Like, I just don't think I could, because the idea of like having to kill Sans and Papyrus, I'm just like, no fucking way. I'm not doing that.
It's so like I didn't play that playthrough mode, but I watched like a YouTube playthrough of it. Because I was fascinated at this concept, and it's actually fucking brutal.
I bet.
It's like exactly as bad as you're afraid it is, except maybe even worse, because the dialogue goes out of its way to like make it extra tragic when you kill these people, and then like, you know, if you kill Papyrus, then later you have to fight Sans, and he just hates you, just hates your guts.
Oh my God.
Which like it's hard to even imagine, because Sans is just like this kind of like laid back guy.
Yeah.
And then like I stop me if I'm spoiling things for you that you don't want to know.
No.
But basically like you kill the king guy at the end, and then the flower is like begging for its life, and then you kill the flower. Yeah, it's all weird and backwards. Like the epic fight with the flower never happens. You just kill the flower easily. It's crazy. It's crazy, and then it ends like super abruptly and makes you feel horrible. It's great. It's fantastic, and it's like manipulation, and the game isn't the game. The game is like the idea that there are multiple ways of going about the game.
Right. And that's something I actually want to talk to you about. I want to talk about the idea of multiple playthroughs in this game, because I beat it. I killed the one frog at the beginning, and then I learned my lesson and killed nothing else. But because this is a game with real consequences, that's enough to make it so you cannot get the best quote unquote ending. But I wanted to experience that, so I did go back this past week, also to just refresh myself with the game, because it was a while ago that I played it. I went back and played it again and set out to do the best ending, the peaceful ending. And I got it. I finished the game on the best ending, and I liked it. I liked the additional information you learn. I like the twists and turns in the plot, the change. You learn more stuff. You learn who the flower actually is. You learn your character's name, which is something you never learned in the normal ending. And I liked all that stuff. But I was thinking to myself, and I was thinking in preparation for the show, I don't know if I enjoyed the experience of playing the game again. And I think that's just because it by default gamifies the game. And I think this game does such a good job at not making it a game that you want to game, if that makes sense. Like you don't like, I don't want to think about, okay, now I gotta say the right thing to him. I definitely gotta defeat them. Gotta go on this date first before I advance the story, because if I'll miss that, to me, it just removes the illusion of the story. It's kind of funny because the game acknowledges that you've played it before, and characters will be like, "You look really familiar. Have I met you before? No, I don't see how I could have, but gosh, you look familiar." And so like it's acknowledging, the game is acknowledging that you've played it before, and I didn't want to do it. It's like I did it, but I didn't want to do it, and
yeah.
It's one of those things that like I love rereading books. I love rewatching movies. I love so not wanting to replay a game because I think actually replaying the game hurts the experience is a very new sensation for me, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. And I'm wondering if you felt the same way, or if you. I know you didn't play it again, but if you would feel the same way.
I think I would, but I think my reason might be different from you, or maybe not. But basically, I didn't like the quote unquote bullet hell combat. Apparently that's the name of like the subgenre of just like
the game within the fight screen. Yeah.
Right. Because it would be one thing if like there was a way of avoiding that and you just didn't have to do it if you were sufficiently empathetic consistently, but you always have to do the dodging and getting hurt and inevitably dying. And I don't know, maybe I just suck at games, but like every time I would die, I'd just be like, oh God, like I don't enjoy this. Like I don't enjoy the dodging, and it can last so long for some of the enemies. You're just like, no, this isn't fun. Like I'm not enjoying this part. I want to talk to the characters and figure out the story. I want to figure out where the story's going next. I even enjoyed the a lot of the puzzles more than I expected to. You know, so like this game reminded me a lot actually of one of my favorite games. I kind of want to say one of my favorite games of all time, because it was a game I played when I was like 7 years old, and thus it has stuck with me for my whole life. And it was called Loom, and it was one of these LucasArts games that you could play on like the Mac.
I know that one.
0.2, and it was all sprites and like beautiful, like I don't remember what the word is, but like very, very kind of pixelated graphics, but very, very beautiful, very beautifully done. And it was all like clever puzzles, not quite in the same vein as this game, but you know, challenging and fun. And the thing was that like I think it also had like different ways you could go about things, but you could blow through the game really fast once you knew the solutions to all the puzzles. So that meant that if you did want to do a playthrough, you could pretty easily just play through the game again quickly and do the different things you wanted to do and explore it and maybe play around in the parts where you wanted to play around.
Yeah.
But it didn't have this long grinding, oh God, I died again, I have to go back to the save point again and then walk across like literally 5 minutes of corridors to get back to where I was, and then
gotta buy more items, man. Got more healing items.
Get more, and then like have 2 random encounters on the way back, and I'm just like, okay, I wish that was either not part of the game, or there was a way that there was like, if you're on the path of not being violent, then like the creatures stop attacking you after maybe the first round, and so maybe there's only like 1 round of combat instead of 73 in some cases. I don't know. Did you feel that way at all?
I mean, it's like the bullet hell is not my favorite style of game. So I didn't like love it, but the thing I liked about that style of combat is how it, especially on the boss battles, it switches it up. I mean, first of all, it switches it up because like every attack is different almost. Like every character has a different kind of attack for you to dodge. But then on the boss battle specifically, your heart is like done the whole color change thing. Mm-hmm. So it's like a whole different kind of thing. Like the spider, you're on the 3 different threads. Mm-hmm. With Papyrus, you're the blue heart, so you're jumping up and down. And then the green heart, I can't remember what the green heart one was. I'm blanking on that now. But anyway, and then the yellow heart against the robot, you're like, you turn into a ship. Your heart turns into like a ship with blasters. So I appreciated that like it varied and was different. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my favorite thing, especially, definitely on my second playthrough when I died on certain bosses. I was doubly frustrated because I'm just trying to get to the next thing so I can see what's different. So I don't really care about the spider boss and I'm really super bad at dodging, or against Undyne, which I'm so bad at fighting Undyne. The arrows that like switch to the opposite side as they come towards you, I was so bad at those.
Yeah.
I never did them right. I just had a shit ton of items with me and survived.
Yeah, I think that was one where I definitely like rage quit the game briefly and had to come back to it later.
Well, the funny thing about that fight is you're supposed to run, and I didn't realize that for the longest time.
Yeah,
and was just surviving.
It's another thing that I'm like not sure if I love or hate is the fact that every once in a while the game will train the game will train you that you're supposed to spare everyone. Like that's the trick. You figured it out. But then like pretty soon after you figure out one of the tricks, it changes the trick. Where now, instead of sparing Undyne, that's never going to work. You're actually supposed to run from Undyne, and not only are you supposed to run from her, but you're supposed to keep running from her. Like that one was. I'm not going to lie. I looked at the cheats a few times. I looked at the tips on how to do things a few times, and that was one where I think I died to Undyne at least once, and was eventually I'm obviously stuck. She's just repeating the same thing every time I try to spare her. So there's some other way out of this. And the solution is run. And then not only do you run, but she keeps chasing you and catching you. And then you keep running. And then you have to keep running in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what if I didn't know to run in that direction?
Well, it's funny because the first time you run, you're next to a door to the next room. But you don't really know that yet. So the first time I did it, I ran in like wrong direction and like immediately got caught. But yeah, I mean, and technically, like the game does hint that you're supposed to run because like when she changes you into the green heart, she's like, now you can't run, right? That's supposed to be your hint, and then that part goes away at some point in the battle, and the flee command comes back. So that's supposed to be your hint. It did take me a bit. It did, and that's one of the bosses I had the most trouble with. I think.
Yeah, I guess what I don't like is the mixture of puzzle with, if you screw up slightly, then you die and have to start over. Like I like being able to just like kind of sit back and solve puzzles, and I get it. Like I get that's what he's going for. He's going for this thing where you're solving puzzles under pressure, and you always have the option of just killing them. Like again, this is one of those things that I really appreciate on the like. This story as a concept level where it's like, yeah, man, this suddenly becomes super easy if you just kill everyone because apparently like even a human child is this incredibly powerful monster. Like that's one of the things you notice when you're watching the playthroughs is like you level up extremely quickly and are just like a destructive being of death fairly quickly. And even like there are some cases toward the end, I think, where you can just kill people with like a single hit, even though they're like a boss, and like it's clearly because you're so evil at this point,
right?
And then some are definitely still hard, yeah, it's such a strange little object because like all of the critiques that I have are like things where it's like, yeah, Matt, but that like he did that on purpose because he's trying to craft this experience where you're like.
Right.
Forced into mortal reflection while playing a video game.
That's what I really love about it is like every bit of design is purposeful and is like fully exploring the entirety of the game experience. Like the final boss, like when you're fighting against the flower, it literally like shuts the game down and you have to relaunch it to get back into the game. And I think that's so clever. It's just like it's like he sat down and was like, okay, how can I use every single aspect of this game? How can I do every single bit of functionality, every command? Like, how can I put narrative weight behind them? How do I put narrative weight behind your game crashing? I put narrative weight behind you running away. I put narrative weight behind you attacking with your sword, or you're choosing to hug someone instead of fight them. Every bit of it has weight behind it. Even when you're fighting the robot and trying to raise your ratings when you're fighting the robot, which healing item you use has different like responses, because like you're trying to raise your ratings, and when you use a popular healing item, when you use a popular piece of food, your rating goes up higher. If you use junk food, they're like, ew, gross, don't eat that, and your rating goes down. So it's like every little bit of combat and out of combat matters, and I loved the commitment to that central design principle.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and apparently, you already noticed that the game treats you differently on your second playthrough, because it clearly like knows.
Yeah.
So like, and apparently that's the case. Like if you did it genocide mode, then the game never quite lets you forget that you did that, which is kind of awesome.
It is. That's great.
There's a flow chart that you can find online that I'm looking at right now that shows like it's like several pages of detailed flow charts of like different dialogue that arises from different choices. like there's something like 8 different endings. I'm having trouble counting them actually. With different details depending on like who's alive and how many random monsters you killed and how many specific like named guys you killed.
Yeah.
Or like who did you date or things like that. Which is another funny thing where you keep dating people who don't actually want to date you.
Oh my God. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's like you go on a date with Papyrus and it becomes this commentary on how to let people down, like maturely, which is, I mean, Papyrus is literally like this goofy ass, like idiot. And he's like, the second he realizes, oh, gee, I don't actually like you. I just went on this date because you said you wanted to. And I was hoping that my feelings would like appear during the course of the date, but they're not. And I still want to be your friend. I still care about you. I just don't feel about you that way. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this game doing? This is a 8-bit skeleton. And I'm like listening to him perfectly kind of go through the motions of how you let someone down in a respectful way. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I mean, like, I think a lot of this game is talking about, like, it's definitely, you already mentioned it's empathy, but I think it's a very specific kind of empathy, because I think a lot of this game is talking about online interactions, how you interact with people on the internet. Because, I mean, if you look at your main character, you're this nameless person that's dropped into this new world, and you're encountering all these these new people, and at first glance, some of them seem to be really aggressive against you, and you can choose to fight them back, or you can choose to understand them and empathize with them. And I think the Alphys character really, really kind of nails this home for me, because the Alphys character is this person who is shy, reserved, unsure of their self. But then you see them, like, you see her online interactions, like you see how, like, she's like a big fan of this certain anime that she loves, and not the sequel though. Don't say the sequel's better, but you kind of see her like text to social media and stuff about how much she loves this thing, and then she's like, you're friends with her on social media, so you're seeing her post about you when she's like super nervous about calling you, and it's just this like really fascinating view of a person who like has this really assured, commanding presence via social media and online, but then when they're interacting with you in person, they're very quiet, they're very reserved. She's like terrified about Undyne learning that they like anime, and like it's just this fascinating like view into a character, and I really love that lens on it. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I got like, this is the internet, and you can either choose to burn it all down and to fight every person you see and kill it all, or you can choose to be empathetic, approach everyone with empathy, try to find out what's wrong with them, talk to them, talk through things with them, and build friendships that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that, but I like that a lot. I think the game itself seems to be about relationships.
Yeah.
Friendships, like friendship is a huge a huge thing. I mean, the first thing where Papyrus, decides he's going to be your friend because you've been kind to him and all that. It's just this whole exploration of relationships between people and the power of relationships and the ability of your consistently being good to people, basically, banking that goodness toward them being good back to you, and then in the end of the game saving you, actually.
Yeah.
And like you said, like that's kind of the fact that you're in this. So like everything when you're in the mom, I blank on the names because I never have to actually say them out loud.
Tario.
Yeah, Tariel. Like everything up until you leave Tariel, to me felt like, oh, this is like a fantasy RPG. And then after you leave Tariel, you pretty quickly meet Papyrus, and then you realize like, oh, this doesn't. The tone is now completely different.
Yeah,
all of these people act like real people with real problems, with like relationship problems and human interaction problems. Like Sans clearly loves his brother, but like is aware that he's kind of like off.
Yeah,
and is like just like trying to take care of him, and there's a lot of complexity in the relationships between everyone.
Yeah,
there's this one moment in the genocide playthrough where, so like the turtle merchant.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like a nice guy in the normal playthrough, or just in any of the other playthroughs, but he like, first of all, he despises you, and then like toward the end of the dialogue tree, toward the end of one of the dialogue trees, he admits like, the only reason I'm talking to you is to distract you, to give other people a chance to escape from you.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and it's like which one is like kind of emphasizes the monstrosity of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But also it's just like, wow, like this is what an amazing character. Like he says he's not a hero anymore, but here he is basically like doing everything he can to stall you, the monster. For the sake of those people, like the people in his town that he cares about, and you really feel the relationships between these sprite characters. It's hilariously good.
I agree. The relationship between Sans and Papyrus, I think, is incredible, and it's one of my favorite things in the game, because I think there's a lot of temptation there. Like Papyrus is built as this goofy kind of idiot character, and Sans is built as this like chill, laid back, lazy kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
And so the instinct there is to kind of empathize with the chill, lazy, laid back guy, and he could have like really dug into his brother.
Yeah.
And Sans is never like that in this game. He teases his brother sometimes, but he is always like, he's always kind to him at the end. Like I love the moment where you pick his favorite food, or I forget you had to choose between some, I forget what it was.
Yeah.
Each of them had something and you had to choose which one you liked better. And if you choose Papyrus's, the first thing Sans says to you after Papyrus leaves is like, "Hey, thanks for picking the one my brother liked. Like it really made him feel better."
Uh-huh.
And it's just like there's like this, like he's this goofy joke telling guy who talks in Comic Sans, and he's so kind to his brother. He genuinely cares about him, and it's so sweet. Like it's such a sweet relationship. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I keep talking about the genocide ending, but that's honestly what's been on my mind all day, because I watched the YouTube of that, and it's so like striking that Sans is the final boss of the of that. Like everyone you fight after Sans is a pushover, because that's just how the game has been structured. It's structured so that this super nice guy who you can't even imagine fighting when you play the game normally,
Yeah.
hates you so much that he becomes the final boss. And kind of what's funny is he's like incredibly difficult to fight, obviously, but this whole time he's been this kind of like easygoing slacker guy.
Yeah.
But you've roused him to anger, basically. It's really well done, right? Like that's a very creative choice to do it that way.
I agree. Yeah, we haven't. It's so funny because we haven't talked much about Asgore, who's like the final dude. We haven't talked about his son Azrael, who we learn about. We haven't talked much about like the final reveal, and I just don't have too much to say about it.
Yeah, it felt more standard, like within genre stuff, where it's like, I mean, it definitely goes with the themes of the game.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I have a ton to say where, this idea that basically the final boss of the game is very similar to you in that they're struggling with the idea that the only way to help people is to hurt people, or to hurt some subset of people, and it's against their nature, and they've sort of destroyed themselves doing it. It's almost like Azrael. I don't know why I don't remember his name. It's almost like he is the you where like he killed some people and regrets it, but he feels like he has to.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happened, right? It's like his name is Asgore, by the way. Azrael's his son. Yeah, his son, like a kid falls down there. The kid is adopted. They're loved by the family. He accidentally dies. They go to return the body to the humans. Azrael is killed, and Asgore's response is to declare war and decide to kill them all. And that's kind of what triggers this whole thing. So yeah, I mean, I could see him as like a reflection of you, like where you're trying to do what you feel is the right thing, but that might involve you slaughtering lots of people.
Yeah.
And truly doing that, because I mean the implication is he's already collected 6 human souls before this, right? There's 6 people he collected before you.
Yeah.
So those are presumably children he's killed.
Yeah, something like that. That's all complicated.
Yeah.
It's.
I guess it depends on the ending, because you learn in the pacifist one that there's like all these experiments going on and combining of monsters and complicated soul stuff. But it's so like, I don't know, like I understand that matters to like the plot, but it's so tangential to me to what I enjoyed about the game,
Yeah, right. I'm struggling for something smart to say about the idea that like it is still so it reminded me of like Final Fantasy games where where they're talking about like the Mako and the life stream and stuff, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is important, this is the plot. But like in this game, when they're talking about like harvesting determination or something, you're kind of like, I don't. That's almost like a red herring. Like that doesn't, your goal is not like, you're not supposed to be harvesting determination. That's not important. The only important thing for you is to consistently spare everyone and be nonviolent, and then everything else just kind of takes care of itself.
I think that's fair, because that's the active part of the story versus the passive part is the testing with the souls and the putting determination into monster souls to get them to be like human souls and blah blah blah. Like that is the passive storytelling of the game.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. You're not collecting materia and
no.
Yeah. So
I loved this freaking game, Matt, and it's even more impressive to know that it was one guy.
Yeah.
Like it was one, like he wrote, Toby Fox is his name, and he wrote and scored the entire soundtrack as well, which is like amazing. I love the soundtrack. It's really good. He wrote it, he developed it, he published it. I think he used some artwork from another artist, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the art, the environments. I mean, the character sprites all have so much personality to them, and like so many different ways of looking, like depending on their mood or what they're trying to express.
Sure, yeah.
The environments are just gorgeous. Like that's always been my favorite thing. Like I have a very special place in my heart for like 8-bit graphics, and especially like the backgrounds and environments that are rendered in that style. And I just love that about this game. Like I remember specifically the part where you're walking through the dark area where there's like the mushrooms that you have to use as light sources.
Yeah.
That being just like, I just kind of like took my time there. I wasn't in a hurry because I just thought it was so beautiful.
That's great. I love that.
And yeah, it's like you said, unbelievable that this is one guy, pretty much, right? Except for a few pieces of art.
Yeah, I think the drawing of the art was done by other people, but everything else, every other bit of game design, of writing, of execution here was all Toby Fox, which is crazy. And he's got another game that's coming out called Deltarune.
Cool.
That I haven't played. I think I don't think the whole thing's out. I think just part of it's out. But Deltarune is an anagram for Undertale. So I don't know if I haven't played it. I don't know if it's related, but I'm definitely going to play it because I'm very into what this guy is doing for sure.
Yeah, apparently the first chapter of that was released in October of last year.
Yeah, there you go. It was just one chapter. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever want to play Undertale again, and that's kind of where I think I want to leave the conversation, is that central idea that I have treasured my experience with this game, and I think playing it again and again is only going to hurt that in some way. I have my memories of the game where my characters felt real, my choices felt real, they felt permanent. Those relationships felt real, and I think playing it again would just tarnish that in some way. And
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I feel slightly different because I felt absolutely no compunction about watching the YouTubes of the other, like the genocide ending and the pacifist ending, because I was like, look, I won't gain anything by making myself actually go through this, because I already, like, the fact is I want to know what the outcome is if you do it all right. So I would already be committed to doing all these same things anyway. So I don't see the difference between just watching it versus being the one who's pushing the buttons, except that it would take much longer.
Yeah,
so,
and I agree. And I, normally I would be right there with you. And I thought about watching the genocide ending before we met. But I just kind of decided that I didn't want to. And that is something that I'm not used to. I am the type of person that likes to know all the endings of the games I play. I want to know as much about the process and as much. I want to like demystify the storytelling a little bit to understand it and pick it apart. That's kind of what we do. And I just, for some reason, the way this game affected me, I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, actually. Like that it affected you on a level where it changed the way you interacted with it.
Yeah, I have no qualms about calling this one of my favorite games ever. And it's kind of like, like when you feel like you're down on gaming, because like you haven't played that great of games in a while, or like maybe specifically like games that are trying to tell you a story. When you're like, you just haven't played a good one in a while, and you're just like, ugh, I'm tired of this. I don't like, maybe I just don't like video games anymore. Like you get to that point where you're just like, maybe I just don't like games anymore. Like I don't like RPGs. I don't like games that tell story. And then you play a game like this one, and then you're like kind of reminded. You're like, oh yeah, that's why I love this. That's why I love this medium of storytelling, is when it's done right, when it's done like this, it can be an experience that cannot be replicated anywhere else ever. And that's what I felt playing this game.
I feel like it might even be worth it to just talk about the fact that this is I don't know if it's technically 8-bit, but the style is 8-bit.
Yeah, I think it's a little more than that, but it's stylistically, yeah.
Stylistically going for this very simple, stripped down way of doing the gameplay.
Yeah.
And like I'm comparing it to like I really don't get to play hardly any games anymore, but I played a bit of a couple hours, I guess, of the newest God of War game. And like that's an awesome game. It's great. And like the reason I didn't go back to it since then probably has more to do with the way my life is rather than me liking the game or not liking the game that much. But I mean, I just think it's really kind of incredibly fascinating that I probably am more into Undertale than I was into this like undoubtedly well done, deep and like photorealistic looking game about God of War. I mean that's a great game too, don't get me wrong, and it's kind of doing a lot of the things that this game is doing in the sense of like connecting you to the characters really effectively through kind of playing with genre tropes, like, you know, the way your son is like your not only is he like your combat ally, but he's also like the heart of the story. I just think it's kind of interesting that I guess I would go so far as to say that like stripping down the game to the most basic elements of just like dialogue, human interaction, or, you know, interaction with the characters in its most basic form via text, do that right, and you don't need AAA title graphics.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I think like the metatextual reason for this was one of ability, because it's one person, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
like I don't think he artistically chose to do it in this graphic style because he thought that would enhance something. Like it was a money and a money constraint. Like he couldn't build a AAA game with the money he had to make this game. But yeah, I mean, brilliant artists take their limitation and use it to enhance the thing that they're trying to do. And I think that's what Toby Fox did here. You're absolutely right. He was kind of pigeonholed into having to make a game of a certain fidelity, and used that to enhance the story, and used that to make a point about storytelling in games, which you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be photorealistic. The character doesn't have to be in 3D and look like they're standing in the room with you for you to develop an empathetic bond to them. And as you're saying, I completely agree that it's almost easier when you strip all that stuff away, when you just focus on just the character, just the words that they're saying, and just, you know, the emotion behind everything, not the flash.
Yeah, it's the old limits breed creativity.
Yeah, completely agree.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, that is Undertale. It is for sale now, unlike everything.
Yeah.
It came to Switch recently too.
Yeah, on like pretty much every console, right? I got it through Steam.
I got it through Steam as well.
Pretty easy to download.
Yeah. It's not that expensive too. I think it's like $10.
Yeah, it's $10. Yeah.
So that is Undertale. Thank you, ENamorD, for making us play that game. I think, as you heard, we both very, very much enjoyed the experience. Even though it referenced anime, I didn't even mind that. That's how much I was liking this game. I didn't even mind.
Yeah, I believe at some point you have the opportunity to tell the guy that you don't like anime, which I assume that you if you got that option, you loved it, and you said yes.
Well, I lied because I care about the person.
Oh, see, look what this game made you do. Insane, unbelievable.
I just abandoned my principles just like that, just to make somebody happy.
Yeah. I agree. Thanks, ENamorD, for getting us to play this, and like not just to play it, but also like making me aware of it, because I'm honestly having as much fun like reading about it as I did playing it, because it's
that's really cool.
It's like, what a cool little thing to exist, you know?
Yeah.
Do doof.
All right. Well, I wanted to talk about a movie before we go.
Sounds good.
On our movie podcast.
Let's do it.
I want to talk to you, Matt, about a little movie called Shazam.
Awesome.
This is the latest movie in the DC cinematic universe, which isn't really a thing anymore, but technically this movie takes place in the same universe as those movies because it references those characters in hilarious ways. So I don't know, Matt, how much do you know about the character of Shazam?
I mean, I'm kind of aware of what happens in this movie roughly. Like, I know that he's a kid who says a word and turns into Shazam. So that's about it, though.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the there's a long, confusing history that we kind of hinted at in our Captain Marvel review, because Shazam's name used to be Captain Marvel as well, which is confusing. But I mean, the basic premise of this movie is that it's basically Big but superheroes. So I think in the original incarnation of Shazam, when the kid turned into the adult superhero, he wasn't like, he was a different person now. He wasn't like a kid just in the body of an adult. And I think this movie said, well, hey, wait a minute. That would be funny if we did it that way. And so that's what they did. And there's a lot of this movie that is a child in the body of an adult superhero kind of learning Tom Hanks-ishly about the importance of certain responsibility and heroism. The reason I really loved this movie, though, is this is very Sam Raimi-esque to me. This movie reminded me a lot of the first two Spider-Man movies, and I guess technically the third, in that it is goofy, it is funny. There are parts that are just plain cheesy, but it's not afraid to go dark, and it's not afraid to go emotional either. There are really dark moments in this movie, like moments when you're like, holy shit, I can't believe the movie where he turned into an adult superhero so he could go buy beer is now going to this dark place. I can't believe that. But it works so well. Like just like Spider-Man 2 did, it transitions between these scenes of comedy to scenes of real pathos and concern and care for your characters to darkness and back again and is having fun the entire time. This is, I think, the exact kind of movie that I always wanted DC to be making,
right,
instead of having like I think it proves that you can have emotion and depth and darkness in your movie without having to make it like the gritty, grim hopelessness of the early DC Universe movies. I think that's like they should look at this movie and that's their poster, that's their example going forward of how you do these things. And I think that's what Spider-Man did so well back in early 2000s too, was kind of set that as a lane. It's good. It's a really good movie. I do have some small problems with it. I won't go into that because they're a bit spoilery, but I think this movie's worth seeing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to see it. I think my question's already been answered, but I was going to ask anyway. I probably shouldn't take the kids to see this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know how you and I feel about like scary monsters in movies where we're like, that's probably not too bad. Like we saw Aliens as kids and got over it. But the bad guys are the 7 deadly sins and they are CGI monsters. And it gets a little intense at times. I think like the real like dark emotional stuff probably will go over your kids' heads because it's like relationship stuff that they might not understand. But I think I have seen reports of like the sins like scaring the shit out of kids. So maybe not.
Yeah, I'll probably at least see it myself first and then judge, because I think it very much depends on context. Like they can watch Star Wars without a problem. Yeah, Star Wars has scary aliens in it, but they're not like. It's all about how the tone is established, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Ghostbusters at 6, and there's like scary dogs like with arms reaching through chairs and stuff. Yeah, and I mean that's pretty intense. I guess I was just fine with it. I don't remember I remember it like scaring me, but in like the hey, that was scary kind of way, not the like, oh my God, I will never sleep again kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's interesting just a slight aside is that it's like from my childhood, I don't remember being scared while watching movies very much, but then I remember being convinced that those creatures were in my room at night later. For sure. Completely separately from like the movie maybe didn't even scare me that much at all. And then, they're totally all over the house. Yeah. I can't go anywhere by myself anymore. So I'll see it myself first in conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's Shazam. Really great movie. I think I probably liked Wonder Woman better if we're comparing DC movies, but definitely up there for sure.
Cool.
And it's a movie. I don't understand why movies especially comic movies, have so much trouble with this. This is another movie. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep comparing it to Spider-Man because it's very much like Spider-Man in this regard. This is another movie where it takes the conflict and the obstacles that the superhero is trying to overcome, and the conflict and the obstacles that the non-superhero alias is trying to overcome, and it manages to weave those together in the climax of the movie. You know, like you should.
Right.
But so many movies don't do that. And this movie does it so well. It does it perfectly. The climax of this movie manages to weave both Billy Batson's and Shazam or Captain Marvel, or they don't actually ever name him. Captain Sparkle Pants, I think is what he says his name is at some point. It manages to weave those two storylines together in a amazingly beautiful, impactful, like, holy shit, this is awesome kind of way.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree. I mean, very often the problem with Marvel movies is they don't even have the personal struggle. It's all just, can Thor smash man?
Yeah, Spider-Man: Homecoming really tried to weave them together, and I just don't think it worked.
No.
But I don't want to talk about that. I like that movie quite a bit, but I think it flubbed that big time.
Yeah.
All right, so that is Shazam. I think that's all I had to talk about. I saw Pet Sematary yesterday, Matt.
What'd you think?
It was a bummer.
Oh man.
I mean, it's fine. Like I almost started writing an essay on this today, but I ran out of time. I got busy with other stuff. But like, you know how much I love Stephen King. Pet Sematary is, I think, one of the most viscerally horrifying of his books. Just the places the story goes are just like shocking. I would not recommend anyone who has young children read that book ever. And I just think the movie like took why the book was so great and just kind of like flattened it in an uninteresting way. I think it's a competently built horror movie that has some good scares in it, but that's it. And that kind of bums me out because I think that the book's exploration of loss and grief and how all encompassing it is and what that can make you do is fascinating. And I just don't think the movie went there sufficiently. And the ending's real dumb. They changed the ending and it's dumb. It's stupid.
Oh, well, that's even
Stupid
worse.
movie.
So yeah, it joins the ranks of Stephen King movies where people meddled with them and then didn't execute it poorly. And
Yeah.
Of which there are many.
Yeah, and look, I know Stephen King endings are bad. Pretty across the board. He's not good at endings. I actually think the ending of Pet Sematary, the book, is perfect. And they changed it.
Huh.
So
Wonder why.
Yay.
Yeah. Oh well.
All right. Well, that is Shazam and Pet Sematary. They're in theaters now. There's a Leica movie coming out on Friday, Matt. It's called Missing Link, and it's from Leica, who we love.
Yes.
And everyone should go see it.
Yes. We need
I haven't seen it yet,
to
but
not go out of business again.
I know. Every one of their movies makes less money than the one before it and is a travesty. And if more people go see Hellboy this weekend than Missing Link, I'm going to have a problem with the internet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Undertale genocide mode on the internet if this movie flops.
And this is literally the first I'm hearing of that. So
well, that's why I'm here.
yeah. Well, yes, we're doing the good work.
Yeah, I'm seeing it tomorrow night. You should take your kids to see that one.
Okay.
I've heard it's like Indiana Jones-ish.
Oh.
I think they'll love it.
Which one though?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into it.
All right, guys, that is all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on anything we talked about, tell us what you thought of Undertale. If you disagree with us on the multiple playthroughs, let us know. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we strongly encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find all the other shows we do over at doofmedia.com. That's including our newest show, Deep Impact, which I think we've talked about a few times on here before. But they are two of our good friends going through Wildbow's web serial Pact chapter by chapter. So go check that out. They just started Arc 5, I believe, of Pact.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. They consistently make me laugh.
That's great. Plus, they have Australian accents. And they say doof like an Australian.
Yeah.
Duff Media. It's great.
Yeah.
If you like what we do here and want to support all of our shows, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing, keep making new content. We're trying to branch out and bring some new shows run by other people like we did with Deep Impact as well. And so your donations really help us in our ability to do that and our ability to attract other shows into our little family here. So we appreciate everyone for donating and supporting us. We really appreciate it. This episode right here only exists. We only played this game because ENamorD was nice enough to donate at that Doof Warrior level. We really appreciate them and each and every one of you that do support us.
Yeah, once again, thanks to ENamorD for this.
Yeah, it's an unforgettable experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, also consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Every review on Apple Podcasts helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, guys, we will see you all next week where we're talking about Game of Thrones. No, the first episode of the last season is coming out on Sunday night. So we're going to have Maester James Gentry back on the show to talk about the first episode and what we think is going to happen for the rest of the season.
Awesome.
See you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.